So, I am going to give you my analysis of Jordan Peterson's new book, The 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. So far, it's fantastic. I've read chapters 1 and 2, and I've got a couple reasons for doing this. One, Jordan Peterson is an extraordinary gentleman, and what he's doing is equally extraordinary. Although a highly intelligent man, I think you can almost be tricked into thinking that he's more intelligent than he actually is, simply because you'll be overlooking the work and dedication that he's put into what is now his current output. It seems clear to me that this man has been pondering and contemplating deeply and critically on some of the deepest questions that we can think of or imagine, and also that are so highly relevant to our actual life and how we live it and humanity as a whole. So certainly a shout out to that guy, because he's doing good things. Chapter 1, the Matthew Principle. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. This principle, it's so true that it simultaneously handles multiple, what we'll call whiny stances. Certainly the idea that capitalism is unfair and that we should take from the people who have all the money and, disperse it down at the bottom so that we get like an equal playing field. And turns out that's just an incorrect idea. That's just a wrong way to look at it. You can't make people equal. The thing you could do is, I suppose maybe you can. You can, actually. And the way to do it is to equalize their opportunity. And the only way to equalize opportunity is to make sure that nobody has it. You can't give everyone an equal amount of opportunity while giving them opportunity. The only way you can do it is to take it away. That way nobody has it. It's all fair. So if that's what you're going for, then okay. But it sounds like a terrible idea. And so yeah, the principle is this, that those who have everything will be given more. Those who have nothing, more will be taken. It's the idea of what you could call self-perpetuation. In the same way that if you're a musician and the more music you learn, the better you get at playing music, and then so you get more gigs, and then more people want to pay you for your music, and then in doing so you practice your craft more and more, and you become even better, and then now they want to pay you even more. Whereas if you don't practice your music and then you go to the gig and you don't do a good job, and then now people don't want to pay you for your music, and now you're not practicing as much, you're less motivated to do so, and people are less willing to motivate you to do so because you didn't really put forth a valiant effort the first time. It sounds obvious, but I think we take it for granted. He does a beautiful job of explaining why this principle is inherent in nature. Obviously he brings up the lobsters. To put it simply, the lobster that is most confident and most powerful just continues in that trajectory, because people see the other lobsters see the confident lobster, and they're like, well, I don't want to mess with that lobster. And then that lobster gets even more confident because he's like, well, this guy doesn't even want to mess with me. And then the female lobsters are like, man, look at that confident lobster. That's one confident lobster. I need to go hang out with him. And then he's like, man, I'm extra confident. These girls are just hanging out with me just because I'm standing here. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, the lobsters that lose a battle and are now saddened and depressed. They walk around looking saddened and depressed, and people look at that lobster and, well, I can handle that guy. Like, that's no problem. And the females are like, I mean, he's clearly not who I want to have babies with, because look at him. He's all down and depressed. Like, no thank you. Which keeps him down and depressed, because he's like, well, people are beating me up, and the females aren't giving me any attention. Like, this sucks. But he gives more examples. I mean, the one I actually really liked was the one in what we'll call the cosmos. If you look at it on a universal standpoint, like, the more matter you have, the bigger you are, the larger your gravitational pull, the more matter you bring into you, and then you become even bigger, and it's a self-perpetuating effect. Like, it's really quite clear, actually, when you think about it. Kind of just makes perfect sense. And so, turns out that's a way of the world. That's a way of the universe that we live in, so far as we can tell. And that's really important. That's a really, really important idea, because it's not so much about... It's not about equalizing the playing field. That's not what it's about. It's about getting yourself into the right side of the game. Because you're going to do one or the other. You're either going to succeed and continue to succeed and put yourself in a direction for success, or you're going to do the other. You're going to not succeed. You're going to fail. And that's going to keep you down, because you're going to honestly identify yourself as a failure, maybe somewhat properly so. Now, granted, you shouldn't keep yourself there, because all things are subject to change, but it's an important principle, and he really lays it out quite beautifully. So obviously, I'd recommend you read it from Jordan Peterson himself. Chapter 2. What was Chapter 2 about? I read this a couple hours ago, this morning. Yeah, Chapter 2. Why do people fulfill the prescriptions given to their pets better than they fulfill the prescription given to themselves? A great question. And so here he goes into defining, essentially, why you suck. I mean, really, to put it quite simply, I mean, nobody knows how badly you suck more than you do, right? Because you've experienced 100% of your failures, you've experienced 100% of your rejections. Not only have you experienced them, you've ruminated on them, you've thought about them, and so you are your worst critic, hands down. Hands down, you are your worst critic. And that can become crippling, seemingly relatively easily. People get into that, and it's hard to get out of. I mean, he says it, you're just worthless, you're useless, you're not doing anything, you're not valuable, you're weak, and you're dishonorable, and you're just not capable, you're incompetent, you're sad, you're not doing anything, you're just sitting there being sad and worthless. And it's like, yeah, such is the human condition. And he points that out too. Like, the being, that's what he's referring to, with a capital B. The human experience is hard. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, I mean, if it's any example at all, I mean, those who most often lots of people look up to, the famous and the wealthy, I mean, gosh, they commit suicide all the time. So, life is hard. There's obviously no way around that. Life is super hard. Suffering is ubiquitous. It is constant. It is everywhere. It is sad, but it's also just another fundamental fact of the world that we live in. I mean, if you think you're going to get rid of suffering anytime soon, then you're not thinking, at least not realistically. Excuse me. I'm not fully remembering the concept of chapter 2. I was thinking about it as I was in a cycling class, which I did my first spin class today. Real weird. This guy next to me wouldn't stop looking at me. It was crazy. He looked at me like probably 40 times throughout the class. I mean, I thought for sure, like, great. Like, now I have a stalker. This guy's just going to follow me around to the gym. I guarantee he's going to try to get my number after class. And that's annoying. And it's, it's obviously a little weird. But aside from that, it was a good class. I definitely enjoyed it. Got a good workout in. Got the heart rate up. At one point, my pulse was going crazy in my neck, and I felt it, and it was like, it's kind of wild. You know what? I'm looking up what the second chapter is, because I'm just getting a blank on it. And so the plan is to not edit any of this. I want to do single takes of my reactions, and I think that'll be cool. Maybe in some ways it's a bit inspired by watching Jordan Peterson's lectures. I mean, I think it's just beautiful how he just thinks out loud. And like I said, I mean, he's been thinking for a long time. He's very, very good at it. He maintains a beautiful sense of direction, and simultaneously will just go off on these random tangents. But they're not random at all, because they just always just circle right back, and it's just beautiful. And if they don't circle back, then it's just like, well, it at the very least ends with here's a tasty little nugget of knowledge for you. Consider that if you want to just, I don't know, think about something worthwhile for a little bit. And so that's awesome. So anyway, chapter 2. Surround yourself. Okay. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. That's what it was called. And so he goes into and explains why you sucking is, for one, reasonable, and for two, how that can become a very self-perpetuating negative loop that you can get lost in. I mean, I know he gives some examples of agoraphobia, which is the fear of basically the outside world, interacting with people or the environment. I mean, if you're a true agoraphobic, I believe you sit at home, you don't do anything. So, he says, first you go out somewhere, you go to the mall, you have a panic attack. I'm summarizing, obviously. Go to the hospital, you're fine. You're like, okay, now malls give me panic attacks. So next time you're driving to the mall and you're in the car, you're like, shoot, I had a panic attack last time. Heart rate starts going up, start having a panic attack in the car, and I have a panic attack in the car. Get home, go to the hospital, you're fine, go home. Now you're like, cars give me panic attacks. Now you're home. You don't go anywhere. And so how do you get out of it? First off, the idea of happiness is misconstrued in our society, and he points that out beautifully. Happiness is an improper aim. It's an improper goal. It's not what life is about, and to aim for happiness is not what That's not what gets you there. The people that you see that are happy, it's not because they were like, I'm gonna be happy, and they did everything that could be happy. No. They said, I'm gonna do something that matters. I'm gonna do something that is good for me, for people around me. I'm gonna achieve a goal worthwhile. And as a result, you become happy. They become happy. Like, that's happiness. It's a result of something else. It's just a pleasant benefit to not being worthless, to not being useless. And I mean, I think the benefit in accepting the fact that life is extremely difficult and you're just not the greatest variation of a human being is it puts you in a true position. I mean, at least it gives you a place to like put your feet down and say, this is where I am. I'm this person and I've got problems. I got struggles. This life stuff is hard. But that level of acceptance and awareness is big. It's big. It's really big, because once your feet are grounded, no matter where it is, even in the deepest, darkest depths of despair, if you can truly find a foothold, if you can find grounding, you can initiate a plan. You can begin to search for a direction. At this point, it's important to find the correct direction. Very, obviously. But then once you see it, which he also points out is not so hard to find, your brain will answer you almost immediately. You know, he'll often say, ask yourself, what's the thing that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing? Your brain will, boom. You'll pretty much get an instant answer. And questions like that in general, you'll typically pretty much get an answer. You might surprise yourself, honestly. I know I have. I'll ask myself, thinking about anything, relationships, job stuff. What should I do? How should I do it? Is this beneficial for me? And my brain will just instant. And then you'll think, oh, sometimes you don't like the answer. You try to work your way through it, which obviously you should. I mean, that's why you have a brain. Like, you can work through things, but you'll get an answer, and typically it's correct. But so once you have your direction, once you see a silver lining to your position, a projection that is lighter than your own. By light, I obviously mean metaphorically lighter, as in brighter, happier, more worthwhile, and more correct. And so from there, you begin utilizing the Matthew principle. Because yeah, look at your life. It's not amazing. But it can be. Do something good. Pick something. I don't know what it is. I'm not you. But ask yourself what it is, and then do that. And I'll tell you what, I lived several years of my life vastly misunderstanding something. I had this idea that there would just be one day where I would finally get it. I'd be like, okay, like, I get it. Like, this is how you're supposed to live your life. I'm supposed to wake up, eat breakfast, exercise, read books, whatever. Don't do drugs and alcohol. And for me personally, don't look at porn. All this stuff, And I just thought one day, like, I'll get it. Because it's like, I know I do these things, but I know I'm not supposed to. It's like, okay, I know all the things that I'm supposed to do, but I do them. I know all the things I'm not supposed to do. I do those too. Sometimes one more than the other. But the fact that I know them means that eventually I'll just figure it out. And, like, I'll get it right, and no, wrong. Like that's not what happens at all. That's not how it works at all. Um, it's a grind. It's a climb. It's a step by step. It's let me do my best to instantiate one good habit in my life. Like let me just try to do one thing consistently. You know, can I do one positive thing in my life for 30 days? Like try that. Like that's hard. Or try not doing one of the things that you know you shouldn't do for 30 days. That's hard. It's that's how it works. It's a step-by-step, grueling, difficult process. And if you think it's anything less, then you're wrong. Also, the silver lining to that is kind of another maybe inherent rule of, well, certainly life for us, maybe not nature, but the things that come easier to us are less rewarding, and the things that come harder to us are more rewarding. And so the fact that putting your life together is actually incredibly difficult means that doing so successfully will be incredibly rewarding. And you know, I'm not going to tell you that my life is incredibly well put together, but if you look at where I was a couple of years ago, huge strides have been made, and I can tell you that I feel huge improvements of positivity, however you want to describe it, happiness, satisfaction, contentment, gratification. I mean, it's all there, and it feels awesome. So, but it's one step at a time. Be patient with yourself. I mean, there's a big difference between awareness and futile self-criticism. Like you don't need to tell yourself what a piece of shit you are, because like that's not true. Like you're a human being. Like human beings are inherently struggling, and that's fine. That's the way of the world. I mean, recognize truth and then use that information to improve your situation, but don't just harp on yourself, because one, that's not helpful, two, it's not necessary, and three, you're just hurting yourself more. I mean, so don't do that. That's not it. So yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up chapter 2. I know I got a little out there, but thanks for listening. I'll let you know when I finish chapter 3. I mean, the plan is to read the chapter, kind of let it settle. I'll probably think about it for maybe, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, I don't know. And then I'm just going to record this, me talking about it. And I'm going to put it on YouTube, just for fun. One, because Jordan Peterson is inspiring me pretty much on the daily. And so I think putting out any content that directs a single person towards him is valuable. Two, I'm kind of curious to see if I'm saying anything valuable, even if it is a reiteration, summary, and a summary of what, essentially what he's saying. I'm curious of that as well. And three, it's just it's a thing for me. It's a challenge. It's a new endeavor. I've never put anything on YouTube, and this idea came to me today in my spin class, actually. And so I said I'm going to do it, because why not? No reason not to. There's potential benefit. That's what's called a good idea. There's no downsides and only upsides. So, thanks.